Hello and welcome to Audiobook Connection, behind the scenes with the creative teams. I'm Becky Parker Geist and I'm your host. Audiobook Connection is your place to learn about the audiobook creative process in discussions between the authors, narrators, producers, and post-production teams that bring them all together, as well as guests who have listened to the audiobooks and have questions for the creative teams. This podcast is sponsored by Pro Audio Voices, helping great stories come alive through audiobook production and marketing. Hi, I'm Becky Parker Geist. I am the host of the Audiobook Connection podcast, Behind the Scenes with the Creative Teams. I'm also president of Bay Area Independent Publishers Association and the CEO and founder of Pro Audio Voices and Amplify Audiobooks, providing audiobook and podcasting production, distribution, and marketing. And I'm excited to have with me today Dale L. Roberts. Dale is an award-winning author with over a decade of experience and over 50 titles in his catalog. And audiobooks have been an integral part of his author business, whether working with seasoned narrators or producing his own content at a local recording studio. So Dale, welcome.
I'm super geeked up to be here to talk about audiobooks. This is something that not a lot of authors talk about. So when I had the opportunity to come over and speak with you about audiobooks, I was like, let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk first a little bit about you as an author. What got you started writing?
Oh, man, I ever since I was a little boy, I was really big into reading and writing. It wasn't until I was later into my adult life, my late 30s, that I discovered I can actually sit down and write and do a book. I was challenged by my corporate wellness coach who knew I was really into health and fitness and was like, you should write a book. And I was like, yeah, I should write a book. 1 year later, I had hammered garbage that came out of it. But nonetheless, I got that first book out the way. So that was the worst book. We're good and done with that. But that's literally what got me into it. It was a challenge. It was, someone saying like, okay, I don't think you can do this. And I was like, I think I can. And here I am, 11 years later and reaping the rewards. It's just been an amazing journey since.
Yeah. So when you finished that first one, did you have that sense of, okay, this is not great, but I'm going to move on? So what was that moment like for you?
I wish I could tell you that I was humble and that I was modest, but no, because I completed the challenge. It wasn't so much that I had this great book. It was the fact that I completed it. I thought that's all that it took. So when my ego said to me, this is the best thing since sliced bread, I've got that book on my shelf. It's not going anywhere. I'm not giving it away to anybody because I want to have that as a constant reminder that I can always do better. I can always be a better author, that I can achieve for higher, things within this business. So it is definitely humbling for me to have that as one of the worst books. But I don't think I realized that until I sat down with a good friend of mine, met him through networking in Arizona. His name is Mark Stafford. Mark, good friend of mine. And I was so elated to have this new book. I handed it over to him and he just kind of thumbs through it and he just does this and he looks up and he's like, who's this for? And I'm like, what do you mean who's it for? Everybody. He's like, you mean to tell me you wrote a fitness book that's good for teenagers and senior citizens? And I'm like, and he stumped me. And I think that's when I started to realize that was just the tip of the iceberg, me realizing that, oh, wait a second, maybe I'm not as good as I think I am. And then I hired a professional editor. I learned really fast. I was not that good.
It's such an accomplishment, I think, even just to get that first book done. I have books in my past, my first book published, and where I think, I'm not telling anyone really about that one because I haven't had the energy or time to go back to that one yet. It's not a high enough priority to me. So I'm just going to keep quiet about it, for a bit. But so I totally understand. And what's so cool, I think, is as you're talking about your journey and these people along the way who have inspired you to take that next step forward. For me, it was Bay Area Independent Publishers Association, where, I've been president now for many years, but just being in that community, you start to learn so much. So did you continue writing about fitness in particular, or have you kind of expanded your content genres. Tell us a little bit about that.
I think it was right about, the first book came out in early 2014, because I had started writing in 2013, came out in 2014. After that, I was still carrying a day job, but it wasn't until I got that first paycheck of like $23 and some odd cents that I said, you know what? Burn the boats. That's it. I'm going to make millions. And you and I both know it didn't quite pan out that way. So it was just having that reality kind of set in for me, like, okay, I am now a full-time author. That means I need to write more often. So initially it started out, it was a shotgun approach where I was just kind of blasting out one work in progress after the other. But when I started seeing that those paychecks weren't moving beyond 3 figures, and I was like $100 some per month, like it got up to that point, I started to kind of panic because then I started having to dip into my savings account. I had to close out my 401k that I had built up for years through my employer. I had to max out my credit cards. It was getting really, really bad. And it wasn't until I had a publishing coach that sat down with me and it's like, okay, you have to stop being so scattered. You got to get really good about who it is that you're serving and get good at that. And so he went through my whole catalog because I had just this mixture of things. I had a bunch of pen names. I did some fiction work at one point. I had some inspirational quotes, books, things like that. And he's like, no. Just put a pin on all that. He's like, let's go to this. He pointed to my book, The 90-Day Home Workout Plan. And he was like, this right here, that's your prize fighter. I want to have more books like this that are very similar so it attracts more people into this brand. And it opened my eyes and made me realize that I needed to be a lot more focused in how I was writing. So I would say for the first year, I just meandered from one thing to the next. It was until about the 1.5 to 2 year mark that I hired a coach and said, okay, either I'm going to go broke or have to go back to work. One of something's got to give. And he's just like, follow me in the next 6 months. If you follow me, buy the T, dot every I, make sure that you have everything taken care of. He's like, 6 months. He goes, your brand's going to explode. I swear to you, it was 6 months to the day that I started with him as a coach that it really did start to take off. It was a lot of grinding in those 6 months, though. I will tell you that is not something I don't even think 11 years later, I don't think I could do that today. Like there's no way, because it was such a breakneck pace. Like I think I was getting 4 to 6 hours of sleep per night tops. Yeah. And I like to have a full night's sleep like everybody else. So, but yeah, it was a tough one, but it was a lesson that I learned that you have to really get good on who you're writing for and make sure that you double down on that time and time again. Hence why you mentioned at the very beginning that I have over 50 publications. Actually looked at Goodreads at one point. I think it's over 105 now, which that includes translations and things like that. So I guess it's kind of cheating, but nonetheless, though, it is a lot. It was because I got really just so focused, so hungry that I just did not let anything stop or get in my way from becoming successful at this business and getting it to where I could gainfully self-employ myself, to where I could actually start paying the bills and not have to worry, oh, am I going to be able to pay this credit card that's maxed out? Spoiler alert, I zeroed it out. So we're good on those end of things. But, it was definitely very much a lesson, well worth it in the long run, that I could just realize that now when you get good on who your audience is, the writing comes easy.
Yeah. And I want to highlight that as well. The getting clear on who your audience is so critical. And then there was another thing that, and just about having a coach. I have also in my experiences, getting a mentor, game changing. Oh, yeah. So, it makes a huge, huge difference when you've got somebody who knows the arena that you're trying to make progress in and can help you know what those next steps are.
You have that person who's traveling that path that you want to go on to lead you in that direction. And I think that was the most important thing, is I needed guidance, because I was like a fire hose spraying around, like just going everywhere. And he, as a coach, came in, grabbed that fire hose, pointed it directly at the base of the fire, so that way we could put that stinking thing out. And so I think you might have interviewed a number of guests, and I'm sure you have a number of peers who have been successful in this business, and most likely that common denominator is a coach. And I think there's a lot of times some authors don't want to swallow their pride, or maybe sometimes they can't afford it, that they're not able to get a coach. That's a big game changer. Just make sure that you do your due diligence. Make sure that whoever that coach is isn't just some grifter who's going to continue to upsell you on things. I was very fortunate that the coach that I worked with, it got to a point where he stopped taking my money. He was like, "You're starting to teach me things, Dale." And I was just like, hey, that's when you know you're on the right track.
Yeah, that's so true. And sadly, in the independent publishing world, and probably in every arena, there are plenty of people who are just ready to take your money without the goods to back up and deliver what you're paying them for. So always good to be vetting and double vetting and researching. Yeah.
Word of mouth is a powerful tool as well. Because, if someone is a terrible person, if they've got a bad track record, if they're, not trustworthy and things like that, people are going to tell you. And in the same instance, you're going to have a lot of different recommendations. I've been very fortunate that I've grown this massive YouTube following over the past 9 years, in that I get a ton of recommendations from people. And thank you, by the way, but I don't currently do any type of coaching or consulting. But that just kind of speaks to how you should be looking for a coach yourself. So if you're an author in your position, like, okay, Dale, I don't have very much money and I'm not really sure who to go with, ask around. Your peers are going to know. And if you don't have any peers within this business, get out from underneath your rock. Go shake some hands, kiss some babies, attend some networking meetings. There's even like a service called shutupwrite.com that has local meetups. So Shut Up and Write is a great place. You can meet other writers as well and get to know them. So don't try to do this business on your own. Even if you can't afford a coach, you can afford the time to network with other peers within this industry. So that way you aren't going this alone.
Absolutely. And actually, Bay Area Independent Publishers Association, although Bay Area is in the title, is open internationally to members, and it's an affiliate of IBPA. So it's a great place for authors to connect with other authors and ask those very questions about what do you know about this book, coach, or who do you recommend, those kinds of things. So then when you decided to start your YouTube channel, tell us a little bit about what your intention was at that point and how that has developed and helped you.
It was all accidental. I will be straight up honest that I don't think I could have ever predicted the success that I had on YouTube. And it all happened by accident because, as I'd mentioned before, I got that coach, and it was early 2016. It was January 2016 to be exact, that my business just took off. And for good reason. It's because it's fitness. Everybody's got their New Year's resolution. So it was almost like lightning in a bottle. Like I caught it at the right time, right place. I had enough of a backlist that I was able to get a ton of halo effect through some of my releases. So I released one, a fitness book, and then the other fitness books would have sales on it. But I had captured the attention of a YouTuber, was pretty popular back at the time. He's since gone on to do other things, but he said, "I love your success story. I'd love to share it with my audience. Do you have some time to come do an interview live on my channel?" And I was like, "Yes, absolutely. I'd love that." So I got on there, did the interview. After that interview happens, immediately afterwards, another YouTuber got a hold of me who happened to be my coach. And he's like, "I want to have you over on my channel now as well." And I'm like, okay, so I had these two interviews back to back in January 2016. The problem was blinders were on. I'm focused on I'm just writing and publishing things. That's all I care about. I need to get this stuff going. The problem is this opened up Pandora's box, because as soon as I went in there, people viewed me as a resource or as quote unquote an expert, because I was on that path that they want to be on. Oh, you're a best-selling author. You started to make, a full-time living out of this. Like, what gives? And see, by nature, I like helping people. That's literally just how I am. I'm just wired that way. So anytime I was getting emails or DMs because of these videos, I wasn't going to just ignore people, but I also knew it was starting to take away time from my writing and publishing process. And I knew that would end up being detrimental. So light bulb goes off above my head because I'm like, oh, but wait. I keep seeing some of the same questions coming through. Rather than me just copying and pasting an answer and sending it off to them, why don't I just create a video that I can copy and paste and send to them so that way they have a resource to go to? So I started doing these videos in April of 2016. So it took me a few months before I finally got the gumption up to give this a shot. And it came with modest results, but the nice thing is it did cut back on the DMs and the emails, and it started to funnel people over to YouTube. Now, within a year, though, it was almost like something tripped my trigger within me. YouTube was kind of like a means to an end. I was just like, you know what? Let me just get these people taken care of, and I could just move on with my life. After a year, I got hooked. I started seeing the parallels between producing videos and producing books. And that's when I started to go, oh my gosh, so this is like this. A book is like a video. And how I plan things out is exactly how I plan it out with books. So I might outline my video. I might even fully script that video. Same thing goes for writing a book. So it's trying to draw all those parallels that made me so excited. And it was literally, and by the way, I'm right now in the midst of finishing up a book called YouTube for Authors. And so I feel like I'm repeating myself because you know how it goes. You go 50 times
Right,
through
yes,
something. But, YouTube is quite an opportunity, but I just never anticipated that it was going to be like it was and that I would become hooked, because June of 2017 was when I just said, I'm going all in. And Becky, when I say I went all in, I went all in. I had enough of a backlist of books, and I had some that were waiting to be, published and such. So I thought, well, let me go ahead and just put my self-publishing business on hold. Let me just kind of just put it on simmer. I shouldn't say on hold, put it on simmer. And then let me focus 100% on YouTube. And I am not kidding you that I went for over 100 days straight of daily uploads. Every day I would show up. I would talk about one specific content or some question, or I would look up another video from another creator that was similar to mine and say, okay, how can I be able to remix this and make it my own? And so the amount of results that I got in my first year, I doubled that within 4 months. So between June of 2016 or 2017 to October 2017, it exploded. Thankfully, I discovered that doing daily uploads is probably not the best use of my time.
It's really good for the algorithm.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It brought me so many different people in there, but it worked really, really well. And then when I chilled just a little bit, it was more, okay, let me figure out how I could be a little bit more strategic about my content release strategy while still honoring my self-publishing business. I don't think I found that balance until closer to like middle of 2018 to late 2018. And I'd say that even to this day, there is still that constant, balance, if you will. There's never a perfect balance, because there's some times where I put a lot of energy into YouTube, but then there's other instances like today. You and I were even, as we connected, I said, my eyes are going cross from how many times I've been writing all day and reviewing and editing everything I've written. So yeah, but no complaints. I don't think there's ever a balance, but YouTube has been one of those things that I just never expected. And a lot of people don't appreciate the fact that it is an incredible vehicle. I have 3 fully monetized YouTube channels. 2 of them, of course, are related to my brand, a lot of people. And I have a 3rd secret one I don't share with people because I don't want to muck up the results that I have there with a bunch of authors coming over going, oh, we want to go look at Dale's 3rd channel. But I did that because it brings in additional revenue, not just through like YouTube ads. Sure, I get some of that. You have channel memberships, you have super thanks, super chat, all that type of stuff. But I also get sponsorships. I have affiliate marketing that I'm able to make revenue from the products and companies that I know, like, and trust, and I share with my audience. So YouTube's incredible. And I could sit here and gush about it till the cows come home, because this is, a lot of authors don't understand this. I equally love writing books and publishing them, as well as writing videos and publishing them. Sometimes it baffles some people, like, why do you like I just enjoy it. It's a fun process.
Yeah. Yeah, I know it can be quite daunting for many authors, especially authors who are, more introverted, more like, I just want to sit in my little cave and do my writing, but
I relate.
Yeah, so I think it's great that you're going to be releasing this book, YouTube for Authors. So we'll look forward to that. And let's just take a short pause. Let's come right back, and I want to talk a little bit more about the audiobook side of things. Would you like to earn more from your audiobook sales? If you're an author with an audiobook, you may have noticed that royalties from Audible especially, and other platforms as well, are frankly kinda pathetically low, disappointingly low, and unfairly low considering what it cost you in effort and resources to create it. How is it the retailers are the ones making all the money off your work and investment? As someone who started in the audiobook industry in 1981, I've found it frustrating that authors keep getting shortchanged. The good news is that Pro Audio Voices just launched Amplify Audiobooks, a direct sale audiobook platform for authors that puts you back in the driver's seat. Earn 65% of the gross sales price that you set. Compare that to the percentage of the percentage that retailers give. Run promotions on schedule whenever you want. Create coupon codes. Build community with your customers, since you'll know who they are and how to contact them. Work with a caring, responsive, supportive team to help you succeed all along the way. Get help with marketing. Get paid weekly. We're helping audiobook authors who are frustrated by painfully low royalties and the barriers that prevent them from managing their own products and customers. Amplify Audiobooks is a direct sale platform that enables authors to earn much higher royalties and have way more control. We're disrupting the audiobook industry by putting authors first. Get started today at proaudiovoices.app. Or go to proaudiovoices.com and click on the Distribution Amplify link. Join the movement. So I know that you had indicated that audiobooks have been an integral part of your author business. Tell us a little bit about that first decision to produce an audio, what led to that, if you can remember, and those early decisions, and then we'll talk about the journey from there.
Well, I want to share with a big mistake. I always share mistakes. I swear, a lot of people are like, Dale's made a lot of mistakes. Oh yeah, I have.
That's how we grow faster.
A ton of them. Exactly. So it was during my coaching period with Jason Brock, was my mentor back then, that we were discussing audiobooks. And I've always been a fan of audiobooks. I can think back to the time when I used to listen to audiobooks on CD or even, gasp, cassettes. And so I knew that was eventually going to be somewhere I was headed. But back then in 2014 to 2016-ish, I just didn't have the discretionary expense or the know-how or the connections to put together audiobooks. Well, until my mentor was like, no. You can go over to Audiobook Creation Exchange and do a 50-50 royalty split with a professional narrator. And I was like, oh, I don't have to pay a dime. I could do 50-50. Guess what Dale did? Went all in. I literally took every single one of my titles and put them up for audition. Wow. Now, I found some excellent narrators, and I've worked with everybody who's been super professional that I've ever worked with that has ever produced an audiobook for me. But the problem that I ran into was that's a 7-year exclusivity agreement in which you are essentially married to that narrator. And The part that I never understood until a 7-year lapse had come up. And at the time, I was thinking, oh, as soon as the 7 years are up, you get the full audio rights. No, you don't. You don't own any of that. You have to pay for that. Like, they still need to be paid. Sure, they've been paid through the 50-50 royalty split, but you don't get the rights to that. You don't just earn it. And so Dunderhead Dale here just immediately thought, okay, so the funny part is some of the narrators were okay with me buying the rights. And they were going to go ahead and revert it on over to me. I would be able to pull it off the platform and then republish it. It'd be 100% mine, no royalty split. Some of them were reasonable, but the ones that were performing really well, they knew they stood a lot to lose if I were to come and buy them out. So then they started taking their per finished hour rate and they jacked it up. Where they were normally, like, let's say $250 per finished hour, there was one person who was asking $1,500 per finished hour because, well, he knew that as soon as I go ahead and pull the plug, there goes his cash cow. So this happened for a handful of these narrators, and I was kind of hurt when that happened, but it was a lesson learned. And it was something I try to share with people. Be very careful with doing any type of a royalty split. There's nothing wrong with it, but just be prepared that if you're doing something like that, you're going into a long-term relationship, and there might come some point later on in your author career that's going to create friction. So I say to people, if you are strapped for cash and it's your only other options, you're doing a 50-50 royalty split or a royalty split in general, then go for it. Do one book and take the earnings from that and bootstrap your next production. So that way you own everything, lock, stock, and barrel, and you don't have to worry about your narrator jacking up your per finished hour rate.
Yeah. So with where you are now in your journey with audiobooks, are you still using the ACX platform?
No, I don't. I don't want to air my grievances here on your podcast, but I've been less than happy with how Audible treats indie authors. I really feel that how much they compensate is just absurdly, it's way too low, especially considering that narrators are not cheap. All right. Good narrators, I should say, are not cheap. Yeah, sure, you can find some like cheap narrators for like $25 per finished hour, but what's the result you're going to get from it? And if you find somebody who's that really good, you better not let them go.
Yeah.
But, I really just recommend that people proceed with caution when you're looking at something like a 50-50 royalty split. I do appreciate avenues like Findaway Voices by Spotify. Authors Republic has been one I've been eyeing up. Publish Drive is not too bad. And what I would really love to see is a lot more options for authors, because it tickles me to death when I can be able to tell people that, hey, look, there is another alternative. Amplify Audiobooks could probably be one of them, or it could probably be something like Authors Republic. It doesn't matter, just as long as there's options, because to me, when there are options out there, this gives authors the opportunity to explore who they are and how they want to deliver their message to the world.
Right. Absolutely. And you and I will chat after the podcast more about Amplify Audiobooks. But I know that our followers, I talk about it a lot. And, it's so one of the important pieces that you've mentioned here is about that broader distribution, even though you didn't use those words, but one of the problems with going through ACX is that you're limited to only Audible and iTunes. And, so you really want to be out in all the places where people are going to be, looking for their audiobooks. So,
yeah. And this business is expanding at such an exponential rate that just to limit yourself to an Audible is just, it's silly. Heck, I think Spotify just announced earlier this week that there was 4 new regions that they're distributing audiobooks to. So this means that, oh my gosh, is there competition finally stepping up to the plate? I hope so.
Yeah. And just a cautionary flag for all of our listeners is to be sure. So the agreement, if you go directly to Findaway, which was purchased by Spotify, if you go direct as an author, you are giving up rights that you may not want to be giving up in that process. However, Authors Republic has an agreement that does not where you are not relinquishing those rights. So we have found that that's a really good path. So you've mentioned also that sometimes you've worked with seasoned narrators. At other times, you're producing your own content at a local recording studio. Tell us a little bit about that decision when you decided, I'm gonna do one myself, and your thoughts around that decision.
I've heard time and again, just through my videos alone, a lot of people were saying, you've got such a good voice, you should be narrating your own audiobooks. I heard it so many times, like, hey, could you narrate my audiobook? And I'm like, no, but okay, let's run with this. Thankfully, I'd been in the music industry prior to any of this stuff here. And so there was a local recording studio where my band used to record at. And you're going to probably just lose it when I tell you how much I paid per hour. It was only $50 per hour for me to go into the studio. So I could just book out an entire day and have a whole audiobook done. And he had really good pro equipment, things like that. Was real happy with the process. It was cool because we'd already worked with each other in music. So anytime I messed something up, he knew where to stop, come back, punch me in. So that way it was flawless. So it would just go from one thing to the next. But I enjoyed the process. Looking back, though, I learned a lot in my first few audiobooks. And one of those things is don't do 6-hour recording sessions. Your voice is going to fatigue after an hour easily. So, and I think Dan, who actually owns Amerisound Studios here in Hilliard, Ohio, even said it too. He's like, maybe we shouldn't do the 6-hour blocks. He's like, why don't we do like an hour at a time and you can always come back? And I was like, oh, but he was right, because it was funny as the longer I would go into the reading, I'd start getting softer in my voice.
Yes, that's so classic. That's so classic. Yeah. And when we're advising authors that want to record their own, that's part of that advice is short sessions, several breaks.
Several breaks.
Stay hydrated. Yeah.
Yes, stay hydrated, most importantly. And don't eat anything before you start recording. I swear to you. That's one of the funny things is a couple times I remember having to pause because I was still digesting some breakfast and you can hear in the microphone, I'm like, oh gosh, no.
Yeah. That's great. So what's, I know you're in the middle of several things because that's what you were telling me. You're in the middle of writing right now. So tell us a little bit about like what's coming up for you, what we should be looking forward to, and then where our listeners can learn more about you and your work. Like,
oh, wonderful.
What's your website?
Always happy to share. I'm right now in the middle of a 12-book series called Self-Publishing with Dale, where I'm going to cover everything that's inside my brain about this business. So hence why I'm hitting YouTube for authors. The next book is going to be email marketing for authors. And then I have 3 books that I'm going to be revising that I had launched in 2020. So it's getting that series out by August, wrapping that up. Come September, I'm going to be launching a Kickstarter campaign for the omnibus, to where I will give special editions as well as additional bonus content for each one of those books. That's going to come in September. So that's the big things. But other than that, though, if anybody wants to find out more details about me, you can always just look me up over on YouTube. That's Dale L. Roberts. Or you can even go to selfpublishingwithdale.com. You get all the information you need, everything from where I am at Discord to my YouTube channels to the books that I've published and everything else in between.
Great. Well, Dale, it's been an absolute delight. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you for your time today, Becky.
Thanks for joining us for Audiobook Connection, behind the scenes with the creative teams. Please take a moment to subscribe at audiobookconnection.com. The podcast is sponsored by Pro Audio Voices, helping great stories come alive through audiobook production and marketing. Learn more at proaudiovoices.com. Again, thanks for being with us, and please join us next week.